Hello, friends. Now, today is a little bit of an unusual one, aren't they always? As you can hear in the background, I hope it's not too distracting, but I'm in a public space. There's a bit of music playing in the background. There are people in the nearby room as well making quite a bit of noise, but I don't know how this will work out. So, this is a continuation of the video we started a couple of days ago. As I explained, Stephen Manning, Integrity Ireland, S.O.S, Stephen on Sunday. We managed to get it right this time. I'm traveling with my son Danny, and we're in foreign lands, and this is the best we can do to get the materials out there. Now, I've also had to make the video a bit quieter so as not to disrupt or disturb the people in the other room. Nothing I can do about the music playing. I just hope it doesn't interfere too much in what we have to say today. Now, in the introduction video, which we did a couple of days ago, we started with a clip of, let's see if I can get this to go. Yeah, a clip of Russell Brand. We're not going to replay the clip, sorry, but very simply, what he had to say, as you can see there, is if you don't yet realize that we are in a spiritual war, then you are on the wrong side. Or I think he might have said, you are probably on the wrong side. I would 100% agree with that. I noticed in the comments on that short video last week, at least one person suggested that Russell Brand was, quote, controlled opposition. And apologies too for the lack of a tie, guys. This is rough attire, I'm afraid, on the move traveling. So, yeah, there was a suggestion that Mr. Brand and amongst others was controlled opposition. I don't think so, guys. And to put it very simply, I'll tell you why. Because the way that the system is going after him carries all the hallmarks of the diabolicals when you try to shine a light into dark places. It's they will come after a person's personality, their character, their business, their livelihood, their family. And one of the first things they attack people with is false sexual allegations. All right. So that's just my tuppence worth on that. But we're going to fly through what we've got to do today. I've got quite a bit. Hope we can squeeze it all in. And I can see some of you on board as well. Hello, Fawn. Hello. And we'll say hello to people as they come on board if we can. This slide was covered also in the earlier video. Very simply, 3 types of people. Now, I'm not saying this is absolute. This is a starting point to try and understand human nature and to try and understand what it is that's going on in the world today and how I can best position myself to be, frankly, on the right side of this holy war. But you have 3 types of people, basically. In the middle are the apaths, the people who really don't care for one reason or another. On the left, you have the empaths. These are good, honorable people who care about other people. And on the right-hand side, you have the sociopaths and the psychopaths. These are people, frankly, who do not care about other people other than when they're making profit from them or capitalizing somehow. All right. These are the people who are capable of great and horrendous and almost unbelievable evil. Unfortunately, those are the people, generally speaking, who are running the world today. I don't know if we got to this one last week, but the point I'm trying to make is that the previous slide is just the model. Okay, that's the sort of the base model to just for simplicities for the sake of simplicity to explain the 3 different categories of people. Here we have the same 3 categories, and we'll pull them up again. And this is the state of the world today. Now, it's taken a while for it to unfold like this, but to put it quite simply, we have sociopaths and psychopaths basically running the show. Now, there's a reason for this, and it goes all the way back, believe it or not, to the fall and to the story of Adam and Eve and where sin came into the picture and all that sort of stuff. But very loosely speaking, we can equate sinful nature, if you like, with sociopathic and psychopathic behavior. And we can equate holy behavior, if you like, or whole behavior with empathetic behavior. So the question here is asking, where would I be on this graph here today. For example, do I work for the government? Is the government doing good things? Am I a policeman, perhaps? Am I just following orders when I go out and I beat up protesters who, many of whom might be empaths who are trying to do something right in the world? Yeah, we have to ask these questions, guys, so that we can start to understand. Oh, thank you, Fawn, saying the audio is fine. Thank you. So, because we need to, if we're going to ever solve this problem, if we're ever going to fight the diabolicals, we have to understand what it is we're fighting. And what I'm doing is the best I can to break down these notions into this concept called the original principle, top right. Okay. So let's move to the next one. And yes, now I wanted to talk a little bit about, well, I say both of these men. Philip there, I'm sure I've bumped into you a couple of times, Philip, on the left. Yeah, sorry about that. If you hear the extra voices there, you'll be able to work out. Funny enough, there I'm sitting right here next to him. There's a police car out the window. I didn't want to alarm everyone. The lighting wouldn't be right, though. If I showed you the police car, you'd know where we are. But certainly they're not here for me for a change. As a matter of fact, he said hello to me this morning at breakfast. So anyway, I wanted to talk about Patrick McGreal, the man on the right. He's being interviewed here by Philip Dwyer. And the reason, actually a couple of weeks back, the reason we didn't do our Sunday video as planned is because Patrick and I were on the phone to each other. And we spent the best part of 3 hours. Now, all I'm going to say is this. Patrick is doing some fantastic work in the courts. Now, what caught my attention, I hope I can explain this diplomatically. What caught my attention was that Patrick seemed to be doing stuff that I was heavily engaged in about 10 years ago. Going into the courts, confronting corrupt judges, trying to help other people negotiate, navigate what is really the legal franchise. You know, this system that is set up in the courts designed to confuse you and deny you your rights and, you know, make money for the franchise while they're doing it. And Patrick had started talking about prosecuting by common informer, okay? Now, the book on the right, as you can see there, the book on the right is The Criminality in the Irish Courts book. If you feel like it, please go ahead. It's the best way to support what we're doing is to purchase. You're not only assisting us, you know, because we make some royalties off the books, but you're getting an education into how the system really works, okay? In that book, Criminality in the Irish Courts, we have named over 40 officials and office holders, over 100 officials and office holders in the Irish state. This is politicians. There's 40 judges named in there, for example, and the crimes they've been committing on a regular basis. I mean, it's how they make a living. It's all a big lie, friends. So if you get a chance, maybe have a look in that book and you'll understand better what we're talking about. But to give credit to Patrick, he's doing an awful lot of very good and necessary work. Now, I'm going to say something here that might seem a little bit odd, right? I'm going to say, first of all, that we need to be involved in the battle against the diabolicals. And the diabolicals are largely the people of sociopaths and psychopaths who are running the show. Highest number of them are the CEOs of international corporations. Second to that is the legal profession. Interestingly, the sociopathic and psychopathic professions are the ones with the highest percentage of sociopaths and psychopaths in them, tend to be the highest paid professions. And in the opposite, we've got the nurses going on strike now, haven't we? They're very high up on this, on the empathetic scale. And wouldn't you know it, they are getting paid the least. So we have a society that seems to value, you know, in inverted commas, certainly in financial terms, values sociopaths and psychopaths over empaths. Clearly, there's something wrong with that, especially when you equate sociopathy directly with evil and empathy directly with good. All right, maybe an oversimplification, but please, you know, please look into this. Bear with me. Look into the original principle, and it'll all start to make sense. So the point I'm trying to make is that it is hugely important that we do not negate our responsibility to get involved in, let's call it the fight. But this is not a fight of violence. This is not a fight of bloodshed, although Lord knows anyone would be forgiven for saying it's time to pick up, the pitchforks and have at it, because these diabolicals, these sociopaths and psychopaths in high places, the governments, the politicians, the senior police, lawyers, the oligarchs and the super rich people that are pulling the strings, the cabal, and of course there are exceptions to every rule, but we're not going to defeat them by becoming the monsters that they already are. That's an oxymoron, obviously. I mean, that's just repeating the cycles of history where you have one bloody revolution replaces all the bad guys with a new set of ostensibly good guys, but because the system itself is diabolical, even the new guys will get corrupted in time. And then you have another cycle of bloody revolution. This is the story of human history, and it's got to change. And I believe we're entering a time now where enough people are waking up to the reality that we're all living a huge lie that is being foisted on us by the diabolicals. And we have to, first of all, understand that. Once we understand it, then we can start thinking about some rational, good ways of disempowering these people, separating from them, disengaging from them, stopping funding them, stopping voting for them, stop working for them. Like I said before, if you're married to one, yeah, sorry, that was my son Danny, and the cacophony of noise here. It's all right. No, it's fine, Danny. No problem at all. So the point I'm trying to make, guys, here, and I must push on. The point I'm trying to make about what Patrick is doing is that he is actively engaged in the fight. But there's an interesting point to make here, right? Now, I'm going to make a prediction because he got into a fracas in the courts a couple of weeks ago with the now infamous Michael McGrath, Garda Michael McGrath, who has committed so many violent assaults on the public without ever being properly held to account. I had him charged with a violent assault back in, I think it was 2016, 17, and they threw me in jail to stop the prosecution going ahead, him and 3 other guards, This is what they do. So I'm going to make a prediction. If you think, and anybody who's watching what Patrick is doing, if you think a win equals Patrick walking out of the court to a round of applause and all of these diabolicals hanging their heads in shame as a decision is made in his favor, that's not the win that is going to happen, guys. The win here is in standing up to these people. It's in exposing them. This is the diabolicals, right? So it's necessary to go through these processes, even though, as I say myself now, if anybody asked me, would I go back into the courts for any form of justice? I'd say no, it's a complete and absolute waste of time. Ireland is arguably the most corrupt, certainly the most corrupt so-called modern democracy in the world. And it's because they're so very good. It's interwoven into the fabric of our culture. The gombeans, the shifty people who seem to, the Michael Lowrys and and all of these senior judges that are all utterly compromised. They have no scruples. They have no morals. They have no moral base anymore. They're just pretentious moral deviants, career liars who are in the perfect environment to make a fortune doing it, which is Ireland of today. Okay, so the way to win is, first of all, to stand up against them and stand up to them and say, sorry, you actually don't have any authority over me, Judge so-and-so. You may have an army of mindless police, and you may have prisons, and you may have all of these court service staff who will simply do as they're told because they're being paid to do so. But I know, and you know, that they're all, at one level or another, they're all on that sociopathic scale. They don't deserve my respect. They certainly don't deserve my obedience. Yes, I might get thrown in jail for it. Yes, they might come after me. Yes, they put algorithms on our posts to make sure fewer and fewer people see them. But the point is, we have to confront them. It's about moral courage, guys. It's as simple as, if somebody is a known thief, and they say, "Oh, can I come and stay at your house, Stephen?" Well, who's the fool if you say, "Yeah, that's fine," and then money goes missing? Yeah, So why do we keep on showing deference and respect to people that, in that book, Criminality in Irish Courts, exposes 100 of them as being absolute, categoric, chronic criminal deviants. Why do we keep showing them respect? We've got to stop it. Anyway, some of the slides are going to be take me by surprise, but let's keep bumping ahead. So Patrick's doing a lot of good work. Please pay attention to what he's saying, what he's doing. Like I said, I've tried to impose on him the reality that they're going to come after him now because apparently Michael McGrath, the guard, pepper sprayed him in the courts, which he shouldn't have done. It's not lawful. It doesn't really matter anymore, does it? A judge will sit there and watch this happening and not take any action because, of course, well, what I was saying, knuckleheads is probably the best term I could use for Michael McGrath. You know, he's not the most unpleasant guy when you talk to him, when he's not punching people or kneeing them or wrestling them to the ground or with a balaclava on and all this sort of stuff. But they know that they can order him to assault someone and he'll do it without thinking twice. Yeah. And hardly anybody is coming back at him and prosecuting him for doing so, which is what you would do if you use the common informer system. All right. So let's see now what we have here. No doubt this is important. Oh, yes. A day that captures Patrick McGreal's courage. Please look at these links, guys. You know, Justice Facilitator, which is what Patrick is calling himself, was banned from filming after the Court of Appeal arrest, right? They can't lawfully ban us, guys. Judge Holtzman's challenge to the law enabling expedited development of this, that, and the other. So what's happening, guys, is again, one of the questions at the beginning of the slide was, you know, when is the law anymore, really? No, it's not, guys. What's happening is you've got these corrupt judges and politicians making up laws on the premise that you and I, as good sort of obedient residents, citizens, call yourself whatever you like, are just going to go, oh, it's the law, meaning I have to obey, you know, yes sir, no sir, yes sir, bow, walla walla, you know. No, guys, if these laws are being made up by evil people for evil purposes and evil intentions, we should not be obeying them. That's one of the cardinal principles. You are duty bound as a good person to disobey unjust laws. I can't remember who said it. Was it Martin Luther King or Gandhi or some noble character like that? But we are duty bound, morally bound, to disobey unjust laws. And I use the Burkes as an example of this. Like them or loathe them, you know, they are principled people who, in their minds, they're being given a choice: obey God's word or obey the diktats of the diabolicals. And they've chosen to absolutely adhere to God's word. Yeah. So the point again I'm making is that law really isn't the law anymore. There again, a few more shots of Patrick. Just to give you some, go and have a look at these YouTube videos, listen to what he has to say. He's, like I said, even though he's repeating to a greater or lesser extent much of the work I've done previously, it's still hugely valuable, because if people start using this system, the common informer system, to go after corrupt judges, aggressive police, dirty politicians, you know, every time, you know, if we, I mean, just look at what happened this week. What's his name? Simon Harris. This woman made some comment online that he said he felt scared by or intimidated by or whatever it was, right? Okay. All of a sudden, she's already in court. She's already being charged. She's already facing months in jail for, making a comment online that made Harris feel threatened. Now, I went to the Garda station myself 2 weeks ago and reported some individuals who had reported that I was in the special forces murdering Irish people back in the 80s, right? Total lie. But I found out who they were. I went into the Garda station, quoted the Simon Harris example and said, right, will you please do something about these people? Here's their names, here's their addresses. I want this material taken down. Well, I'll tell you what now, guys. The guard, a man called Alex from Clare Morris. All right, we'll have more on this next week. You know, hello, Louise and Lizzie. Nice to see you, Lizzie. Yeah. I went into the Garda station in Clare Morris, made this, gave in a statement, a comprehensive statement of, you know me, all names and addresses of all the people involved. There was 4 individuals. And this guard, Alex, said, I'll call you back at the weekend. And when I said to him, well, look, he was saying, well, what's it all about? I said, well, if you look at the link, you'll see I'm not going to be looking at any link, he said. Now, hold on a minute, you're a flipping public servant, aren't you? You know, I'm bringing a criminal complaint to you. I've told you that it's along the same lines as the thing that was served on Simon Harris. You know, are you telling me that just because Simon Harris is a corrupt politician and just because I'm an honest member of the public, that he's going to get favorable treatment and you're going to completely ignore my complaint? That's literally what's happened. So, Alex, I hope you're watching this because I'm going over your head, sunshine. And yeah, we'll see what develops. We'll track this because I'm going to follow through now, going over his head and see how and why it is that corrupt politicians like Simon Harris get preferential treatment from the Garda Síochána that we, the tax-paying public, are paying to protect us from criminal activity. Apparently, it doesn't matter unless you're a corrupt politician. Anyway, I think I've got a few more to go. Ah, yes. So these are the other books, guys, that I'd like you to consider. The book on the left is, I think it's only a tenner online. It's certainly not much more than that, guys. It's a relatively small booklet. Do-it-yourself justice in Ireland. The quick and easy, lawful way to take on tricksters, tyrants, thugs, and thieves in the Irish justice system. There they are. The tricksters are the lawyers. The tyrants would be the judges. The thugs would be the guards, and the thieves would be the court service. All right, for example. All right. And there on the right, indictment and a petition for a public inquiry into state-sponsored criminality in Ireland. Another little booklet, only about a tenner online, guys. But it explains, and this was an application that I made to the houses of the Oireachtas. And I'm going to show you something now, guys, that some of you are going to find hard to believe. And it's along this theme of the Holy War. So simply, I'm splitting the population, if you like, into two, which is empaths, good people who care about people, some better educated than others, some wiser and more well-informed than others. And the better informed they are, of course, the less likely they are to fall prey to the diabolicals, who on the other side, in the same way, the more intelligent ones are the CEOs of international corporations, lawyers, judges, politicians. The less intelligent ones are mostly languishing in jail because they got caught for doing something stupid while they're either committing a violent crime or whatever. All right, you get the idea. And then there's the huge swathe of humanity in the middle, the apaths, the apathetic masses, who basically shrug their shoulders for various different reasons or scratch their head, but they too are very easy prey for the diabolicals, for the mainstream media, for, you know, the lying politicians. I mean, for God's sake, the only thing they're good at, to become a politician in this country, I would say you have to be good at, let's say, three things. Number one, you have to be a good talker on camera. What you're saying doesn't really matter, but you have to appear confident and you have to look nice in a suit, okay, or whatever it might be. Secondly, you have to be able to lie through your teeth without pause, without conscience, without any sort of introspection. Thirdly, you have to be obedient to the system, all right? Or first of all, your political party, whatever it might be. That's basically it. Of course, there are some exceptions to the rule, but please watch out, okay? So, just a few facts I pulled up before. These are just truisms, guys. Number one, we are not equal before the law. Number two, the legal profession and the courts are a franchise, just the same as McDonald's, guys, or Tesco's, or anything like that. They are a franchise. They work in collaboration with each other to ensure that they're all getting their, you know, their mouthful out of the gravy train, if you like. If that's the way to put it, okay? Number three, they profit by obstructing the administration of justice. You and I think that the judges and the court service and the lawyers are there actually to expedite justice for people who have been wronged. It's completely the opposite, my friends. They're there to suck you dry. They're parasites. They see you as a means to an end, to bring you into their so-called legal system with their convoluted legalese that doesn't make any sense, hardly even makes sense to them. It's a deliberately makey-uppy language, part Latin, part English. And if you notice on many legal documents, the punctuation is missing. That's so that it can be interpreted variously in different ways by these people when they're trying to drag out cases or swing a decision in the wrong favor, a favor that isn't just, a direction that isn't just. they gain by perverting the course of justice. Irish judges are politically appointed. This is another no-no. There's a thing called the Bangalore Principles, which are supposed to be the internationally recognized guidelines for appointing and administering judges. You know how they show the sort of people you should be. Hello, Mary, nice to see you, and Mr. Gilchrist. Morning, all. Yeah, Saoirse Aaron, good to see you, buddy. If that's a buddy or is it a man, I'm not sure. Yeah, our judges in Ireland are politically appointed. You don't get to become a judge unless you're in the good favours of one of the major political parties. Simple as that. You watch what happens at the end of a cycle, of a political cycle. All of a sudden, there's a rash of new judges appointed, so that the outgoing, especially the outgoing political party, is lost to the competitors, so that they have their buddies in place to do their bidding, even whilst the judges very pompously declare, oh, I'm independent, you know. I have no political affiliations. Since when, Judge? Oh, since the day I got appointed a judge. Oh, really? Yeah, we believe you. Thousands wouldn't, you know. The law is a government-sponsored tool of control. If you don't know that by now, guys, then, you know. I know you'd say, well, what do we have in its place? That's what the original principle is all about, guys. The law is structured to serve the interests of the cabal. And that means the interconnected elites, all the people that work for them, the toadies and lackeys of the system, all of the people who say, sure, you've got to make a living. Sure, I'm just doing my job. Sure, I'm just driving the train to Auschwitz. Remember that? Okay. The law is a perverse parody of transparency and accountability. There are no effective remedies to judicial corruption in Ireland. Even after they set up this judicial council a couple of years ago, they appointed a guy called Kevin O'Neill, who was previously a senior pompous ass of a registrar up in the High Court. I remember once we went to him with a complaint and we said, someone at your office is doing X, Y, and Z, you know, obstructing our paperwork and all the rest of it. And he says, yeah, so. I said, well, we'd like to know who it is because we're going to take a prosecution against them. His response was, it's enough that I know who it is and I'm not telling you who it is. So this is the guy they've got now in charge. He's the secretary to the Judicial Council. He's also the gatekeeper to any complaints made about judges. And I think, was it last year or the year before? I think there were 33 registered complaints got past him and 32 of them had been thrown out, largely on his decisions. Yeah. So, you know, and the overriding objective, which is that court cases are cost effective, efficient and fair, which applies in England, or at least in paper it does. It's exactly 100% the opposite in Ireland. They're costly, not cost effective. It's as costly as possible. Efficient, no, drag it out as long as possible, and fair, absolutely not, completely unjust. Again, guys, I hope this is helpful to some people. Okay, we must know the truth and we must speak the truth. Right, what's this one? I'm being taken by surprise here. Oh, yes. Oh, this. Okay. The parliamentary rules of the House of the Oireachtas. So let's say, this is the committees, all right, up at the Houses of the Oireachtas. Now, for those of you who may be watching and look, basically the way the government works, or some parts of the government, they have these committees made up of different politicians. You know, 8, 12 people in the committee, whatever it might be. And cross-party, they call it, you know, whatever. So there's a mixture of politicians from different parties on these committees. Now, they will promote themselves saying, oh, look how democratic we are. And they have schoolgirls, for instance, coming in, raising some issue, and they all study it, and the schoolgirls are applauding them on video and saying, oh, we didn't realize that they were so approachable and so on. Okay, well, when I approached them with my indictment booklet and with the Criminality in the Irish Courts project, which before it was a book, was an application to the Justice Committees to look into corruption by Irish judges in particular, right? First of all, they lied to me. Now, the point I'm trying to make here, I'm going to show you something that I'm sure many of you are going to scratch your heads and say, surely this can't be the case. And we're talking about the law again. How real is law anymore? How real is it? Okay. So you have these justice committees. Let's bring this back up. I'm not sure which order this is coming in, guys. So the parliamentary rules, okay? The Constitution allows each house to make its own rules, right? So it's law. These rules are law. the laws that govern how they operate, okay? These are known as standing orders. The standing orders of the Seanad are enforced by the Caherlaic and so on and so forth. Excuse my Irish pronunciation. So, okay, so they're saying the committee shadows the Department of Justice and considers policy in the fields of justice, security, and the rule of law to ensure that Irish society is safe, secure, just, open-minded, and impartial. Lie, 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 lie. All of it, guys. And I'll show you why. Watch this. So, when I sent in my reports and my books, first of all, they lied to me. Okay, as a matter of fact, I'll pull us out of this just for a moment. I'll just reduce it for a second. I'll come back to it in a second. So I made an application to the committee, and this is after going to the European Court of Human Rights and finding out that they were colluding with the Irish Court Service to stop applications that will embarrass the system getting through. So I went to them and I had this absolutely nailed down. By that, what I'm saying is, on paper, there was no way out of this. The committee had to look at this issue and had to basically start firing judges, somehow impeaching them. But instead of doing that, the clerk, a fellow called Alan Guidon, I can't find a picture of him anywhere. You'll often find these senior civil servants. They have no internet footprint anywhere because they're hiding. They don't want anyone to know who they are, even though they are some of the most powerful and authoritative figures in the country. They sort of, the politicians can't run the thing without them, and they know this. And a lot of them are getting paid even more than the Taoiseach. And these are sort of senior civil servants. This Alan Guidon fellow, I pressed him and I said, have you put my matter before the committee? And it was a proper formal application, followed all their rules and procedures. And he said, oh yes, he said, the committee sat and considered this matter on such and such a date and have decided that there's nothing further to discuss. And I thought, is that an answer? Can you get away with giving me an answer like that? So I went in, and unfortunately for him, I suppose he didn't expect me to do this, but I got the minutes of that committee meeting. And at no point anywhere in that meeting was my application discussed. So this Alan Guidon fellow was lying to me. All right, there's the first problem. He's the clerk to one of these Dáil committees. All right, very senior civil servant, supposedly answering to all of those justice and truth and that Irish society is safe. It's all lies, my friends. So then I wrote back to him just the once and I said, right, Sunshine, you've lost your privileges. You've lied to me. I don't deal with liars. End of. I don't deal with you. And you might say, well, what do you do then? I went over his head and I wrote to every single member of the committee. And I think some guy ironically called Lawless was in charge, some TD. But anyway, or appropriately called Lawless. And I wrote to each one of the TDs and I said, right, here's the situation. I'm not talking to your clerk anymore because he's a bloody liar, right? He's lied to me. He told me that you all sat now. First of all, I want to know what you guys are going to do about him. Are you going to fire him and replace him, get somebody there who's telling the truth and doing their job properly? Secondly, I want you to tell me, each one of you as individuals, to tell me that when you've discussed this matter, what your outcome is, and I want a proper answer because I want to publicize it. I want to tell the public. This is the response I got, my friends, and I hope you're as shocked as I was, all right? Look at this. This is their revised acts. That's what I'm talking about, makey-uppy rules, right? Number 4, revised acts. A document given to a committee by a person who is not a committee member, such as me, shall cease to be a document of the committee under subsection 2A if the committee so decides. And then Alan Hannon, or there he is, sorry, Guidon. Was it Guidon or Hannon? Oh, I may have said the wrong name. I hope not, anyway. If I have, they're all in together anyway. It doesn't really matter. And he says to me, accordingly, there is nothing further to discuss. In other words, oh yes, and then just to rub salt into the wounds, even if you go back and complain against the committee about this sort of nonsense, at the end of the 33rd Dáil, the work of this committee ceased and they start anew and they just basically blame the previous committee for any problems. Oh, well, that was them. That's not us. We're the new committee now and we don't talk about previous stuff. We've got no jurisdiction to do it. There's some rule somewhere. But basically what this means, excuse me, my friends, basically and it's very hot in here as well, by the way, I'm sort of quite Yeah. So, what this means is that you can make a genuine application to the Justice Committee about criminality going on in the Irish courts. You can name names, you can say everything explicit, evidence, the whole lot, and they can all sit in a circle and just go, this Manning guy's he's a bit persistent. This is a bit of an awkward one. I mean, basically, he's shown us proof that the Chief Justice Donald O'Donnell is a scallywag and a criminal scallywag. So is Justice Michael McGrath, Justice Noonan, Justice Humphrey. I mean, I could go on, guys. I could list literally 40, 50 of them, off the top of my head even. All right. And everything he says on paper is 100% backed up. He's got proofs, he's got documents, he's got everything. The courts, he's proven that the courts are a criminal enterprise. What can we do? I have an idea. Section 4, subsection 2A. If we all vote that this document has ceased to exist, then we don't even have to talk about it anymore. Hands up. Yes, yes, yes. Everyone votes. And that was it. And that was the end of it. Guidon or Hannon or whatever his name was, wrote back to me, even though I told him I wasn't interested in hearing from him again. He said, and you could always sense the sneering, smug, oh, wow, your documents, your application to the committee has been voted, it's ceased to be a document before the committee on the say-so of the committee, and therefore there's nothing further to discuss. Tatty bye, Mr. Manning. That's what you're up against, my friends. Liars, career liars, and moral deviants. Okay, we're definitely not going to get through everything today, but I hope to get another one just before Christmas. We'll finish this off if necessary. All right, so here we go, guys. Here we are. The clerk to the joint committee, right? Now, I went in looking for his name, right? There he is, Alan Guidon. There he is. I think I wrote Hammond, but it's Guidon, as you can see, right? So that's his name, Alan Guidon, and he's coming back to the new committee. So he could deal with questions pertaining to the previous committee because he's the head of the next one, okay? But when you go looking for him online, he's not explicitly mentioned in the available results. Why not? You put it in. What's the name of the clerk to the Joint Justice Committee? It doesn't come up on Google, guys. You've got to go hunting for it, okay? So anyway, that's the point I'm trying to make. They're hiding. Of course they're hiding. If anybody has a photograph of Alan Guidon, please send it to me, and we shall put his no doubt handsome, well-fed face up in lights for Christmas. All right. So if you have it, please let me know. We've got to be brave, guys. I used to being over direct, uncompromising, and yeah, I agree absolutely. How much leeway do you give evil? How much? Oh, well, it's not polite. That's why they insist on having good manners in the courts, because it's one of the veils that prevents you from expressing your frustration and your anger. As soon as you raise your voice, it's like, oh, no, we can't have that in here. No. Remove so-and-so, remove. It's all pretense, guys. It's all theater. It's all lies, okay? So that's what you're up against when, and people like Mr. McGreal, Patrick McGreal, he's going to eventually run into these people. So here he is. He's been a supposed public servant for over 30 years, found in there on, principal clerk up at the door, Surely the public should know what he looks like. I hope you all agree, yeah? Somebody out there must know who he is. They must have a photograph of him. Please send it to us, all right? And make sure it's the real guy, of course, because we don't end up being sued for putting up Patrick the butcher or something and accusing him of being a criminal politician or a toady to the politicians, So now who's this? Oh yeah, this is the Lawless fella. I mean, it is funny in a way, isn't it? James Lawless was the chair of the Joint Justice Committee. Now, why am I brought this up? Now, if you're, he was working with Guidon. Okay, there's another, but as you can see here, the Irish Council for Civil Liberties, right? I want to say something about this because it was only on the news last night. The tasers now. Guards are being issued with tasers. Very bad mood. They're already far too eager to stick the boot in and use the batons. Part of the reason why so many of them are leaving the force is the decent ones are leaving. And you're being left with a glut of either compromised, trapped, or active sociopaths who just love being violent and love the power that they get by putting a uniform on. It's no way to run a so-called Guardians of the Peace organization, is it? You know, and respect, of course, I know a lot of guards, and a lot of them have been decent and reasonable with me down the years, and I'm not going to deny that. But you're in an organization very much like being in the army. You know, you're a murder machine. In this, you're a corruption machine. You're there to protect the interests of corrupt politicians. And there's a reason, guards, why if you join and guard a Síochána with, genuine ambitions to do well, you can only get promoted to the rank. Now, I believe it's inspector. Yeah, I think it's inspector. You can go from Garda to sergeant to inspector under local governance, or, you know, in other words, your local superiors can promote you. But when it gets past superintendent, you have to be politically sanctioned. All right, sanctioned meaning approved. Okay, so the Garda commissioner himself can't even promote people beyond the rank of inspector. It's all done politically, and you wonder why. And Garda Síochána is so irredeemably corrupted. You know, yeah. Even the decent people are, like we've said many times, if you meet a middle-aged guard and he's still either a guard or a sergeant, there's only two possible reasons for that. He's either incredibly stupid, too stupid to be promoted, or he's honest. Remember that, guys, all right? I presume on the second one, okay, because that's usually the case. They're honest and they're not going to get promoted into the top ranks because they cannot be relied upon to be a buffer between the evil mongers and the rest of society. So here he is. So what am I saying about Irish Council on Civil Liberties? Okay, so they're in the news, coming out and making broad sweeping statements against the issuing of tasers to the guards. Now, why am I making a point of this? Well, I'm making a point of this because the Irish Council of Civil Liberties, although it claims to be independent and everything from the government, is funded by the government. All right. The reason they're out there shouting about, oh, this is terrible, the guards can't have tasers, because at first I scratched my head and went, well, the reason they're saying it is so that you don't have to. All right. We are now led to believe, oh, there's some organization there representing our best interests that is representing our best interests and denouncing this move by the government to issue tasers to the guards. So we don't need to say anything. Trouble is, it's absolutely owned, controlled, and run by the Irish government. Where we go? Who's this guy? Oh, yes, Liam Heffernan. Okay, hello, Liam. Oh, sorry, wrong name. My apologies. Actually, I do know a Liam Heffernan, decent man. My apologies, Liam, if you're listening. This is live, so I can't undo that bit. Liam Herrick, my mistake. My big mistake was in the back of my mind here. Liam Herrick, okay. Now, let's just have a look. He's the guy in charge of the Irish Council of Civil Liberties, okay? This guy in the past. Another fraud, guys. He's an absolute, when I say a fraud, he's foisting himself, presenting himself to the people and the organization he heads up as an independent. We'll hold government to account and we'll make, and it's all, again, it's all lies. They're funded by the government, well, by the taxpayer, all right? So let's just see why I'm saying this. Well, and who is this Herrick fella? Previously, he was the head of the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, right? So he's appointed executive director of the Irish Council for Civil Liberties. Hold on a minute. So what's the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission? Well, it's the same thing that used to be called the Irish Human Rights Commission. And guess who was in charge of it then? This same guy. And as I've said here, he was also an advisor to President Michael D. Higgins. Yeah? Then he was executive director of the Irish Penal Reform Trust. Why do you think he's in charge of the Irish Council of Civil Liberties? Is it because he actually holds, or is it because he's a toady and a lackey and a patsy of the government? An all too typical insider being misrepresented as independent. There he is again, guys, just making the point. How are we doing? About 10 minutes left. He was the first head of legislation and policy. There we are, making up rules and laws again at the former Irish Human Rights Commission, as well as with the Law Reform Committee and the Department of Foreign Affairs. He's an absolute insider, guys, you know. Look at it here at the bottom, you know. Mr. Herrick's selection by who? By who? By ministers, by the politicians, just like the senior ranks of the Garda Síochána, you know. Following, following what? A public appointments process. So what was this public appointments process? Oh, Liam, we've got a job for you. Yeah, sure, thank you. And belatedly, then they'll put ads up or something to make it appear that there was some sort of a competition, you know? So he now has to be approved by the Oireachtas before his formal appointment by who? Oh, his previous buddy, Michael D. Higgins, who he used to be a personal advisor and assistant to. It's a joke, guys. It's an absolute farce, okay? This is him making comments about this Danny McCoy, whoever that is. Intolerance is an evil that threatens Irish society and our prosperity too. Yeah, of course. It's just, they're there to make noises, to diffuse public anger and disquiet, you know? And then somebody else has made a comment here. Yeah, the same IBEC. So, you know, so at the top there, Herrick says, this is a great piece by Danny McCoy of IBEC, the Irish businesses and something or other. I'm not quite, I've forgotten it, I'm sorry, about leadership on the diversity and equality. And this is hugely important. It's all, you know, it's the narrative. It's the cabal's narrative. All they're doing is regurgitating it in the form of pretend opposition. This is the definition of controlled opposition. And then someone in here comes in and comments, and this is the same IBEC that fights tooth and nail to keep wages down as low as possible. Spare me. So who's lying to us, guys? Yeah, it's intolerable, really, that we're subject to this persistent, consistent liars. So all lies and spin and all taxpayer funded. You know, you go onto their website and there's all of this blather. They're all toadies and lackeys of the system, all on the gravely train, all doing as they're told. You know, I said here, you know, we want to make sure that we are effectively holding the state to account. And I've written on the right there, yeah, they're comedians too. They obviously think we are all stupid. Okay, next one. What are we doing? Okay, guys, so we'll just keep going this on. Now we're back onto the Burkes. I've talked about these before. Oh yeah, I've got a clip here, guys, and I want to make a point here. Let's see, is this? Yeah. Yes, I'm going to play a clip of the Burkes here, a short clip, where they're just making the point that they don't lie, and that's the first sign of people who are, you know, drifting towards the dark side. How often and how easily and how frequently do they lie? Yeah, the Burkes do not lie. It's one of the things that puts them absolutely over on the righteous side, even if you find that righteousness somewhat irritating, you know. But they are absolutely positions them in the right column, if you like. They are involved absolutely in this holy war, and they're absolutely on the right side of it. So I'm making a point here that this was the first book we wrote, the S.O.S. Save Our State, you know, guide. It's a very big volume, 360 odd pages, I think. And I've said, this was to them in one of the posts I put online, you know, not 100% sure if it applies in this case, but please read this page from the Integrity Ireland S.O.S. guide regarding contempt of court, because there are many incidents where it is the judges themselves who are in contempt by unlawfully placing other people in contempt. And is it worth? Well, I'll pull it up. So if you're interested, guys, freeze the page and later and read it. I won't go into it all, but I quote European law here, the things that they're doing wrong. The trouble is, as always, is the judges control the bully boys. You know, they control their administrators, all of the court service staff who will do their bidding and can mangle the paperwork or disappear stuff or alter it and change it. The amount of times we've seen this happen is unbelievable. And of course, they control the guards who at a nod will just leap on people and start beating them up, spraying them with mace, giving them punches in the kidneys, all typical Michael McGrath stuff, I'm afraid. So there's the first one, and there's the second page of the same information. So anybody who's being accused of contempt, please look at those two pages and confront the judge, because judges officially cannot be, if there's an there's a principle in law that says a judge cannot be the arbitrator in a case involving himself. It's common sense, isn't it? It's like, I'm playing soccer with a team and I'm also the referee. It's just ridiculous, But there are rules about contempt of court, and a judge cannot find somebody in contempt of an action that is committed against himself. It has to be given to another judge to make that decision. And a lot of these loopholes are being completely ignored in their race and their hurry and their rush to crush the Burkes and silence them any way they know how, usually by inventing false laws and then using the toadies, the lackeys, the monkeys, and the thugs to enforce it, Lord. I see we've got a few minutes left. Yeah, this is where we have the little video clip, if I can bring it up. Yeah, it's short, but they're just making the point that they do not lie. And I'd like you to listen to this, please, guys, and let's see if I can bring it up here.
Almost instantly, forcibly ejected from the courtroom.
Ejected from the courtroom.
Now, the purpose of today's hearing in the High Court was to deal with those issues regarding the lies, the slanderous and scurrilous statements that Mr. Justice Brian Cregan had said about Enoch Burke. He said, for example, that there were affidavits that the pupils and the teachers of the school had sworn, stating that Enoch was a potential danger to them. No such affidavits existed. Other slanderous statements were made.
Yeah, where are those affidavits? If they existed, why aren't they being produced in evidence? Why aren't they discovered, as they say, So this is a Justice Brian Cregan, a High Court judge, lying through his teeth. And what did we say earlier? The mark of a diabolical is the lie, first of all.
Citizens of this country, without opening their mouths, are being removed from the courtroom. And this is by Judge Cregan, his direction, his order.
Yes.
And this Judge, Brian Cregan, just spent 20 minutes today, just as far as I'm concerned, telling a lot of lies about my son and seemingly getting away with it. My son doesn't lie. Now, lies are mentioned a lot.
This is what I want people to pay attention to. She just said it simply. My son doesn't lie. What a wonderful thing to be able to say. I remember listening to a radio program a few months ago, maybe a bit longer than that, and some clever dick commentator in the Irish radio announcing to the whole nation that apparently everybody in the country lies at least, I think it was 30 or 35 times a day. And there might be small lies like, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. It's not a lie, is it? That's a nicety. That's a pleasantry that you exchange with somebody in order not to waste their time. I tend to do it as a joke. Someone says, how are you? And say, well, actually, I got a little bit of a pain in my backside this morning, or whatever it might be, right? Big toe is hurting me, just for a joke. And then people go, well, did I just ask you how you were? Yeah, you did. I was about to tell you, but you want to go on your way, But it's a little sort of a jokey way of pointing out to people that there's a lot of things we do and say every day where we're casually being not necessarily deceitful, because when you're being deceitful, or at least a person with a conscience does. Most of these people, these sociopaths and psychopaths, are people absent a conscience. A lie is just a means to evade accountability for whatever other evils they've committed. But to be able to say it, I remember hearing that radio show and they said, oh, we all tell about 30, 33 or 35 lies a day. And my immediate reaction was, well, I don't. Certainly not consciously. I don't. How many other people feel this way? So they're trying to normalize the fact that, oh, well, everybody tells lies and it's nothing to it. There is something to it. If you're deliberately lying, like this Judge Cregan, you're positioning yourself as a diabolical. You're lining up with Satan, as simple as that. He's the father of lies, the master of all lies. Let's see what else they have to say.
In his ruling today,
Yes.
lies.
Yeah.
My son was brought up in a Christian family, and one of the main things he would never be tolerated in our home was lies. So my son does not tell lies.
Excellent. All right, so we'll pop them out of there. We're down to our last few minutes today, guys. There's going to have to be a third part, because I want to talk about the votes on the abortion bill, and things like that. We'll definitely do that. We're still on the move, but hopefully we'll be in a location where we can do part 3 before the Christmas, because I'd prefer to do something lighthearted, a little bit more lighthearted for Christmas, if we can find something, maybe something appropriate to do with the birth of Christ and what it really meant and how it really happened. So where's our I think it was this one, is our slides. Oh yeah, and this is Cregan here. That's him. Look at him, the grinning, smiling liar. Yeah, also in one of these secretive Freemason organizations, you know. So yeah, got no time for you either, Cregan. You're a disgrace to your profession. You're a disgrace to the citizens of this country. You're a liar. I tell you what, if ever I was in your courtroom, I'd simply say to you, I'm not dealing with you. No more, and again, I'm not comparing myself, of course, in this manner, but I did make this point before. If you look at the way that Jesus handled himself when he was brought to court, do you remember? He's brought in front of Pilate, and he's accused of blasphemy or whatever. Jesus's reaction is not to engage with them. He stands there quietly. I think on one occasion he answered and said, "Are you the king? Are you the son of God, or whatever? Are you the king of the Jews? Or are you the son of God?" I think it was the king of the Jews. And all he says is, "Well, you've just said it. You know, you've just said it." And apart from that, and I know it ended up with him getting crucified, and shocking and awful, and whipped and scourged and tortured and all that. And it's terrible, absolutely shocking. But that's the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is, if you don't play their game, they're going to come after you. We've got to change the game, my friends, okay? We've got to change the game. And we start by recognizing the lie and all of its insidious and establishment forms, and bit by bit trying to decide to ourselves that we're not going to be part of it. And when we do part 3 of this, guys, we'll go in and show some of the solutions to disengaging from this system, so that we can all at least aspire to want to be true, goodly or godly people, if that's the way you want to put it, which doesn't mean boring, by the way, not at all, right? But it means that we can actually, instead of just saying, "Oh, sure, what can you do? We're all subject to these laws, and there's more of them than there is in us, or they've got the power. You know, what can you do? I can't be thrown in jail because what will happen to my family, whatever." I've been through all this, guys. I know what it's like, okay? Watch Patrick McGreal and see what happens. And finally, I think I'll finish on this one probably, guys. So then this Cregan fella, now think of what they've done already. They've already had him in jail for over 500 days. He's back in jail again now over Christmas, right? Enoch Burke now has something to hide regarding his income, says the judge. Why is that? Because they can't tune in to the concept of a principled person doing what's right because it's right. They've got to think, oh, there's got to be some hidden motivation here. There's got to be some, hidden money flowing in. That's why he's doing this. He's in it to make money. He's going to jail for 500 days so that he can make money. This man has just lost his career, guys. That's Mr. Burke as a teacher. Okay, let's read this and then we'll finish with that for today. In a ruling given on Tuesday in response to Mr. Burke's complaints about his choice of words in a previous judgment, Cregan said, "This case is exceptional." Why is it exceptional? Because Mr. Burke has made a calculation that it brings him notoriety and his 15 minutes of fame. It could also be because he and his family wish to make money from this campaign. I note in this regard that Mr. Burke has refused to comply with a number of court orders directing him to furnish an affidavit of income and expenditure. I wouldn't either, Mr. Cregan. If you ordered me to do something, I'd say, "I'm sorry, to comply with your order would be to comply with criminal activity. Go and take a long walk off a short plank." Maybe Brian Cregan has something to hide about the way he earns his taxpayer-funded lifestyle, where in fact they're earning over 3 times more than the average judges in the European Union. We'll continue with this shortly, guys. We'll say goodbye for now. Are you ready, Danny, to move on to our next leg of the journey? God bless everyone. Hi, Noonsflower, Adrian, and Giro Balans. God bless you all, guys. Talk soon.